Next is Marxist perspective, A.R. Desai. I've told you the context already. So actually the success of Russian Revolution, 1917 onwards, this perspective was there in India. Okay, so during freedom struggle, this perspective was there in two forms. One is in radical form, like you can see in terms of militant nationalist, etc. Radical Marxism was there, or communist ideology was there. Also liberal form of socialism was there, like Nehruvian socialism, right? It's a kind of liberal socialism. So this idea was already there before independence. But 1947 we got independence, welfare state established. So during freedom struggle, the Congress have gave a lot of promises like land reforms, removing inequality, removing poverty. A lot of promises have been given. So when the welfare state established, you have to give a chance to the state, right? So to fulfill the promises. So there was no relevance for Marxist perspective in the beginning, post-independence. There was no relevance because there is no need to question. You need some time to give to the state to implement the policies. And you can see state come up with land reform, state come up with community development programs. A lot of good programs have been implemented, but it was, problem was with the grassroots level implementation. Even land reform was not successful. It was having a lot of problems, right? There was politician landlord nexus or the zamindar village official nexus. So even the fraud transactions, all these were issues, and land reform could not be implemented properly. Community development program was also not that good. Okay, so a lot of issues was there. That is the reason why during 1960s and 70s there was a need to critically analyze government. Now it's almost 15 years. Inequality, instead of decreasing, it is increasing. Poverty increasing. Okay, everything is increasing. Regional inequality increasing, income inequality increasing, and that was coupled with Green Revolution. When Green Revolution was there, regional inequality started increasing further. Within region, income inequality increasing further, because those who have land, excess land, they can only go for Green Revolution, because Green Revolution need everything in large scale, not only land. First of all, land, and everything you need to apply in large scale. So only few sections can get the advantage of Green Revolution. From Punjab and Haryana also, the rich capitalist farmers only can get. Otherwise, regionally, if you see, some states only can afford or can get this, right? So that led to regionalism, and that led to income inequality, regional inequality. And after Green Revolution, people have identified and understood the value of land reform. Okay, before that it was not much cared, but now all these issues started picking up. So there was a need to question or challenge the policies of the state. So this perspective got its relevance during 60s and 70s. Then what is this perspective? This perspective is all about Marxist perspective. Okay, reducing everything in material terms, economic condition, economic infrastructure, FOP, ROP, the same things will come here. Economic infrastructure, mode of production, everything will come here. Let's see that. So Marxist perspective of understanding Indian society uses basic assumption of Marx theory of historical materialism. It is the same only, there is nothing much to teach here. In India, it is closely associated with the historical approach. Marxist view found favor in India, particularly after the success of Russian Revolution in 1917. This ideology emerged within the framework of nationalist movement in predominantly two forms. Radical form, that is a revolutionary movement. Okay, different revolutionary movements was there. Liberal form, Nehruvian socialism. In Indian sociology before independence, this perspective was used in combination with Indological perspective. If you remember, I've told this point when we discussed about Indology. So our D.P. Mukherjee made it a Marxological approach. At the academic level, this perspective could not find much favor because of its radical nature, which never suited for colonial interest. After independence, during the initial decade, a mixed model of planning was adopted with an aim to uplift all sections of population. Various programs and policies concentrated the aim of the sociological investigation to acting as analytical aids rather than suggesting an radical alternative. Okay, so it's all about you need to provide an analytical aid. There is no question of radical alternatives now, because immediate the welfare state was established. You need some time. Already mixed model of planning was adopted. So various programs are implementing for the upliftment of the poor. So you need some time. The emancipatory concerns highlighted by Marx were entrusted to newly emerging welfare state. So whatever concerns which were raised by Marx, it was entrusted to the welfare state. It was expected that the welfare state will do everything which is required for the masses. The initial faith on welfare state prevented the conceptualization of the contradiction between haves and have-nots. So during that time, there is no question of conceptualization of haves and have-nots, because welfare state will do the needful, will remove poverty, will remove inequality, land reform will be done, everything is expected. Even during this period, isolated studies were made highlighting the contradictory aspects of Indian society. Subsequently, the inability of the developmental model in addressing the aspirations and problems of people led to the emergence of alternative views for the interpretation of Indian social reality, and that's how Marxism emerged. For example, in spite of rejection of caste system by the constitution, it continued at the grassroots level. Poverty remained, and the dream for balanced regional development was a distinct reality. So that means regional inequality, poverty, inequality. Thus, during 1970s and the 80s, the Marxist perspective of understanding Indian society was made popular in the writings of A.R. Desai. Marxist perspective attempt to understand society in the following ways. It attempt to understand Indian society in terms of process of historical developments where society as a whole or its institution have seen us evolving in terms of changing material condition. Exactly the same as what we have discussed in case of Marx. So historical developments, society and its institutions are evolving in terms of change in material conditions. A.R. Desai, in his book Social Background of Indian Nationalism, uses a historic materialist approach to understand Indian society. Similarly, Daniel Thorner understands social inequalities in India, and particularly in the agrarian social structure, in terms of Marxian theory of class and class struggle. For example, Jajmani system. Okay, I've told you Marxists will understand it as exploitative system. So Daniel Thorner will also identify or highlight the exploitative aspect of Jajmani system. The social structure and the institution are seen as rooted in productive relation. We know what is this productive relation, rather than understanding them in terms of cultural categories. No more cultural categories after Indology. More primacy is given to economic infrastructure while explaining the dynamics of society. For example, A.R. Desai famous work Peasant Struggle is a classical example of how the struggle between have-nots can influence the political system as well as the government policies. So few examples you can write in between. I've given you a lot of examples here. Marxists see society in a systematic manner. Okay, even Marx also, we have discussed about society as a system. If you remember this diagram we have discussed, right? This diagram we have discussed, systemic view. Again, acknowledging the centrality of economic infrastructure. There also we have seen the same. Marxist studies of village understand village as a network of social, economic and political relations woven around land. So everything now connected with land here in Indian society. In Marx also, when we discussed about feudal society, it was almost the same. Marxist perspective studies Indian society in terms of contradictions and conflicts. Okay, same only, more particularly after 70s. The Marxist analysis highlighted the contradictory and the conflictual nature of Indian social institutions. The structural functional view about various institutions was challenged. So now the functional approach like caste system, okay, Jajmani system, the joint family system, everything is now challenged, like what we have seen in case of Marx. A.R. Desai challenged the harmonious character of Indian village historically as well as contextually. For example, Green Revolution and land reforms were analyzed in Marxist study. Now we'll go for criticism. This perspective could not acknowledge the religion or culture as a central institution in Indian society. See, in Indian society, we cannot talk about material condition, we cannot talk much about economic infrastructure. Rather, religion and culture is playing the more dominant role. Okay, so in Indian society, that is what Indologists will say. Indian society has to be studied with the concepts specific to Indian society, not with the Western concepts. This led to inadequate explanation of importance of religion and various cultural categories while understanding Indian society. Marxists also overlook the importance of caste in understanding the social structure and social organization. So they are only trying to identify the class. Even in the village studies also, they were trying to see everything in terms of class. The farmers and the peasants as a class, not as a caste. they have not recognized that the lower caste are the peasants mostly, and the upper caste are the zamindars or the farmers. The actual social relation in India could never be understood purely in class terms. Yes, in India, even now also there are obvious limitations in identifying in class terms in rural area. Maybe in urban it is fine. Marxists overemphasized on conflict and ignored the functional aspect of family, village, etc. This perspective was never found capable of portraying the total reality due to overemphasis on material condition or economic infrastructure. So this is the criticism. The perspective is very simple. Marxist perspective similar to Karl Marx, structural functional perspective similar to Durkheim. Okay, Indology is what's something new to you. So today we have done 3 topics. Nowadays this is what expected, because we will go faster. You have to revise, and you can ask me whatever doubts you have immediately, after completing the session or before we start the session, because these topics are very simple and maybe we will finish in 15 days. After thinkers, this is how we are planning to go. Yeah, we can discuss if you have any doubt now. Aman, tell me. Tell me, Aman.
Yeah, hello sir. Sir, A.R. Desai number 2 perspective.
A.R. Desai?
Number 2 perspective. That productive goals, something like that. A.R. Desai number 2.
This one?
Yeah, yes sir. Productive relation.
Productive relation means everything I've seen in terms of productive relations, like when it comes to land, it is between peasants and landlords. Like the productive relation, it is not that caste relation, or it is not that, obligatory relation. Everything in terms of contractual or productive relation. Marx is also talking about productive relation only. Everything in productive relation. Productive forces, productive relation. That is connected to the economic infrastructure.
Okay.
Okay, see here, when we talked about Jajmani system, I've told you Jajman and Kamins, right?
Correct.
This you know already, right? You have already studied this.
Yes.
Okay. So this is understood as obligatory relation, right? Traditionally, and as per Indology, as per structural functional perspective also, it is obligatory and it is functional. Because Jajman will take care of Kamin, Kamin will help the Jajman also. It is functional and obligatory because this is a higher caste and this is lower caste. But as per Marx's perspective, it is understood and seen through the productive relation. Like these people, Jajmans are exploiting the Kamins. Okay, they are getting the maximum benefit out of it. That's what I mean by productive relation.
Okay.